We
Moving
don't
on.
actually care.
No.
We don't actually care. In the
No.
end of the day, we're all so self-absorbed for better or for worse.
Right. Well, and again, it's helping, like you just said, it's helping to validate your human experience.
Yeah.
Because all we want to do is feel that we belong somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you don't belong to yourself first and foremost, you won't belong anywhere.
So feel me when I bring it, sing it loud. I'm from the loot and I'm proud. Run a mile for the cause. I'm right.
Hi guys, it's your girl Nakama, your favorite Jew from the Lou. Welcome back to my podcast. And today I'm so excited to have our next guest, McKinsey. Or really, I should say, Dr. McKinsey.
What's up, Nahama? How's it going?
Hi. So I'm really excited to have you here because I know Mackenzie from the St. Louis Sports Clinic.
Mhm.
Tony's been my chiropractor. Then I kind of switched on over to Nick. And I've gotten to know the whole team over there.
Yeah.
And you guys are the best energy.
It's so much fun.
It's so great.
Never couldn't have asked for like a better environment for anybody.
Literally. And even like as a team, it's probably great for you to work there as an employee. But for me, like coming in as like a patient, I just feel like a friend at the same
Yes.
time. And I think everybody has that feeling there. It's just so great. And I love your energy, but like you're busy working. I'm busy getting my session in. So I feel
Right.
like we've passed each other, but we
Mhm.
never really got a chance to sit down and talk.
No.
So I was so excited when you said that you would like come and do this podcast episode because like Loki, I was like, we're just gonna hang out for an
Yeah.
hour.
And
It's gonna be great.
finally chat and catch up outside of our little like, oh hey, hi bye.
Yeah, literally. Um, I really wanted to focus this episode talking
Mhm.
about how you have worked in a lot of different areas
Mm.
where it was male dominated.
Yeah.
And as like I only knew about the sports clinic. I didn't really know about your life much before then. So
Yeah.
we're gonna discover all about Mackenzie
It's gonna be a fun
together.
time. Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
I don't think I've really kind of told my story. I always tell it to like bits and pieces to people,
Yeah.
and I'll like throw a little tidbit out there, like, wait, what? Oh, I didn't tell you.
That's natural though,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. So chiropractic is actually my third career. Done a lot in, my short years here.
Do you mind me asking how
Yeah.
old you are?
Yeah, I'm 29. I'm
Okay,
29.
you're older than me.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
cool,
I'll
cool.
be 30 this upcoming year. So I love it. I'm excited to be 30. A lot of my friends and colleagues and peers are very nervous about 30, but I feel like I'm finally like stepping into my
Mhm.
own. I feel settled, I feel confident. It's just a whole different energy. You don't feel as like rushed or needing to be big or um like feeling like you're missing out or doing the wrong thing. I just feel way more settled. So I'm excited
Yeah,
to turn 30. It's fun.
you should be.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I have this theory.
Yeah.
I'm 30. I think that it comes down to two things. I think it comes down to whatever your expectations are for life. And for
Mhm.
some reason, 30 is like an age where we have a lot of goals that we want to be at.
Mhm.
So I think if you have reached certain milestones that you've set for yourself by 30,
Yeah.
30 isn't something you're scared of. I think
Mhm.
people only feel scared when like all of a sudden there's 30 around the corner and they haven't accomplished anything on their
Yeah.
list,
Yeah.
or they feel lost.
Mhm.
That could be another
Mhm.
big thing because
Yeah.
in your 20s, like your early 20s, or like when you're in college, you think by the time you're 30, you're going to be this settled adult,
Right. They just got it all
which
figured out.
isn't necessarily the calm that you're talking about
Mhm.
either. But we'll get into that.
Yeah,
We'll get into that.
it's wild. And like to go off your point, I love talking about people. I love like also I'm in the people business, but um I feel like to your point when you reach 30 and you feel like you've accomplished all these goals, where a lot of people find this is going to sound really kind of sad, but like that emptiness, even if they have achieved all of these milestones that they've set for themselves. A lot of times, what I found is that my friends or peers will be kind of sad or scared about turning 30 because the milestones that they've set and achieved, and they have a great life, but they feel like something's missing.
Mm,
Those milestones may not have been their milestones. It comes from within them to some extent, but it's going off of whatever influence you follow, like your family, yourself, your environment, whatever that might be. You want to get married, you want to have kids, which is I love that for people, and that some people that is exactly what they want to do, and they set off. I'm like, yes, have so much fun.
mhm.
But it's that emptiness of not having purpose, and once you find that purpose and actually work towards it, even if you haven't achieved it, but you're settled in, okay, this is who I want to be. This is how I want to move forward. And this is each day how I'm going to do it.
Mhm.
Even if it looks different each day, some days are completely shambly and some days are, all right, cool, we've got this figured out. Having that steadiness of purpose is what I've found, at least for me, to bring me to that steady state. I'm like, all right, we're good. One step at a time. Let's do
Yeah.
it.
Well, I mean, that's the whole idea of like the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah,
And I want to almost argue that the pursuit is the happiness.
absolutely. Yeah.
There's this concept that I've heard, and I'm going to be butchering it a bit,
Yeah.
where it's like if you pass by a graveyard,
Hmm.
that's where you will find the most dreams that never came to life.
Yeah.
People who maybe lived for others or had responsibilities, so they didn't get the
Hmm.
opportunity to. There's a million different scenarios why.
Yeah.
And I remember in the back of my mind for the longest time, I would pass by there and I would always be like, if I were to die today, which is so morbid,
Right. No.
but if I were to die today, would I, could I say that I've accomplished all my dreams?
Yeah.
And I'm in a place in my life right now where I just switched careers.
Right.
My first career, you've done three.
Right.
This is my first switch, which was really
It's
hard.
so hard
Let's
and
talk about the
nerve-wracking.
first switch
Yeah.
because you go to school
Mhm,
and there's a lot of ego involved too because you spend a lot of money.
mhm.
You have an identity associated with a certain degree and a
Yep.
certain career path. And then you tell everyone in your family, everyone in your social circles.
Mhm.
And then either it doesn't feel right or it's not a good fit, or maybe you aren't that great at it. There's so many variables.
Right.
And then switching is so hard because there's almost that like quarter life crisis where you're like, who am I? What am I?
Yep.
And that's scary, but it's also so satisfying because what well, I'll get into what I'm doing later.
Yeah.
But what I'm doing is like me leaving behind one career path
Mhm.
and chasing another that I know absolutely nothing about and I'm
Yes.
just learning and curious
Mhm.
is so exciting. And even if I were to, God forbid, die tomorrow,
Mhm.
I would feel so satisfied that I'm trying.
Yep. Yep.
So let's go into your career.
Yes. No, I love what you said. We'll circle back to it about
Yeah.
curiosity because
Yeah.
that has been my saving grace for everything is staying curious, really being careful not to judge yourself, judge your choices because you're only doing and making decisions based off the information you have at the time.
Mhm.
And obviously hindsight will always be 2020, like every time. But going into each of these decisions, each of these life stages with curiosity has been the best way to honestly help yourself again step through that with a little bit more confidence. It's always going to be very scary. A little bit more ease. But yeah, honestly, I didn't have the terror of switching careers until after my second one. My first career, I worked in Major League Baseball. So my very first, my
Okay.
undergrad degree was in, I had worked in neuroscience and psychology. I had a BS in both. I love brains. It was the coolest thing. And I just happened to meet up with this woman who owned this business working with major league teams. And we got to talk and she knew my background, knew what I like to study. And she asked me be a part of her team. So what we would do is I was a cognitive consultant. So I would travel to these teams pre-draft workouts and I would do cognitive assessments on their top recruits and kind of give my 2 cents of how I would think they would cognitively handle the game, which is the coolest thing because I wouldn't even look at their stats before I tested them. Afterward, I would kind of
Wow.
look at them and see if it matched up. But all I would know would be I know their name, their age, and their position. And we would do our tests, and I would make my predictions based off of what I saw. And it's basically testing their ability to adapt, not quite a grit test, but more of how quickly and how able are you to switch your strategy in the face of adversity. And then we also watch their like how are they physically handling it? Are they tense? Are they calm? How are they talking to themselves? And that helped. And it's so funny. Each player in each position had a very distinct profile. So I was able to, this is my one like claim to fame. I was able to accurately predict the first round draft pick and how well they would do all 3 years that I worked with this company, which was the coolest thing.
Wow.
Um, That was such a fun job because we traveled all over the country. We traveled to the Dominican. I had to brush off my Spanish. I got to be very fluent in Spanish, which was the coolest thing and very empowering to be
Yeah.
able to go from, your basic Spanish that you do in like college or high school to being very fluent and speaking with these young men who know nothing about English. And Dominican and like Colombian and Venezuelan Spanish is very um, guess you could consider it or relate it to like a Southern accent in the States where everything's a little bit all slung together. So
Yes.
you're like, wait, slow down. So that was really cool. I had a blast doing that. It was very empowering to be able to travel the country and really see that my skill set of what I learned in school and then but also how I was able to relate to people and convey like what I found and all that fun stuff was really empowering. That was a really cool job. Would have done that for a while, but my boss sold the company, and I was like, "Oh, okay, just kidding. I guess I'll pivot to something else."
Wow. So you were doing that, it was fulfilling, and
Mhm.
when he sold it, was there no longer a position for you? Is that what happened?
Yes, yeah, so she got rid of that division. I actually don't know specifically what all she sold, if she sold the entire business or just part of it, but my specific position was no longer there, which was sad because I got excited about building it
Yeah.
and expanding upon it, but,
And you grew so much, and you
yes, I
loved it so
did.
much,
Mhm.
and it was so fulfilling.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be devastated.
And it was it was a blessing in disguise, because it was, a lot of travel and a lot on me mentally and physically in that aspect.
Mhm.
I don't know if I've told you this, but I've had several concussions, and that has messed with so many things.
How?
They were all s they were all so stupid, like, wrong place, wrong time.
Okay.
First one being in high school, like, I was cheerleading and a girl fell on my face. I don't really remember what happened, honestly.
Probably for the better.
Yeah, all I remember is because we dropped the flyer, so if you drop the flyer, you have to run.
Right.
And I was running, I was like, "Why does my head hurt right now?"
Ooh.
I was so confused, and so I didn't report it or anything, and I'm just the type of person that's just gonna put a front on, but it's not about me, and nobody really needs to know what I'm going through, like, because it doesn't affect you, so I'm just gonna do my thing, and that was a what year is this? 2024, so a 12, 13-year well, still ongoing, but not nearly as bad, 12, 13-year battle of figuring out those symptoms, how it works for and against me, and, by the time that I started this baseball job, the symptoms were a lot worse than I thought. So, like, I would get very tired very quickly, um, and I couldn't really articulate clearly my thoughts. I'd have to do a lot of preparation each day to make sure I because could be called into the general manager's office of these major league teams to give a report on somebody you just did without having a chance to formulate your thoughts and opinions. So you had to be very methodical about how you allocated your energy.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it's a blessing in disguise that that job was no longer an option for me because I was genuinely very concerned. I was like, "How the hell am I supposed to keep doing this if I can't figure out myself? Because then I'm not doing a service to anybody."
Right.
And then, yeah, I love doing my work well, and I love showing up and doing what I need to do. But if you're not showing up as 100% of yourself each day and like putting forth your best self, I just feel like it's the detriment to everybody. So
For sure.
again, blessing in disguise, I think, even though it was a fantastic opportunity, learned a lot. But I think the biggest takeaway from that job specifically, at least in terms of myself, is how to pay attention to myself instead of just pushing everything as like my physical well-being aside.
Yeah.
So that was really
I love the aspect of it where it's like you could tell how successful a baseball player was going to be
mhm,
based on how quickly they could adapt.
mhm,
And I think that's applicable for anything.
anything. Mhm.
Anything. It's not about how skilled you are,
Yeah.
and it's not about how talented you are. It's about
Mhm.
how adaptable can you be.
Yep. Yep. And that is, like I said, if you stay, I mean, curiosity is like that's the theme.
Yeah.
a lot these player there's a couple players that I knew you were gonna be top recruits, like, I know because I can tell that you are a very good skills player and you rely on those skills. My favorite was, the 2nd year I was there, I tested this young man, very kind, very respectful, but when I did my test, he just didn't really care, which is, again, something that I see in the guys that love to just play. I'd wanna just play. And I knew he was gonna be drafted very high. And I predicted he's gonna be first round, and he was. And the next year, I was like, I feel like he's gonna rely on his skills, on his athletic skills, and not really know what to do because when you get to those levels, you're fighting for millimeters against all these guys in order to be promoted to the next phase of the league. Because just because you get signed to a team doesn't mean you're automatically in the big leagues. There's
Right.
many levels that you have to go through. And I was like, I feel like you're gonna struggle. You're gonna be drafted, but you're gonna struggle. And the next year I show up and I ask the assistant GM, I was like, "So how's he doing?" He's like, "Well," I was like, he's not doing well, is he?" He's like, "No, how did you know?" I was like, "Well, I predicted
Kind of
that. I
predicted
kinda
it.
predicted it
Kind of my job.
last year." Yep. I was like, "He's doing really well skills-wise, but,
Wow.
like, can't find those barriers." And I find that even outside of that realm, that baseball realm, anybody that I've met and really kind of connected with, even if it's very briefly, like we just chatted at a coffee shop or whatever it might be, anybody that I found a true connection with has had that kind of adaptability and willingness to be like, "Okay, this is an obstacle, not great, but how are we gonna get around it?"
Yeah.
Um, and those are the people I'm like, "Yeah, you just you get it. You see."
Mhm.
And that's when you have the fun conversations. It's like, "Well, okay, how did you get through this? Tell me
Right.
about it."
And that is
And
so helpful.
mhm.
Yeah. And this is why sports is used as an analogy for everything
Yes.
because it's literally the basis of everything, honestly. I mean, because it's the same thing in like a career
Mhm.
where it's like when you're first starting out, maybe you have the talents, but then you're
Mhm.
right, as you get more into it,
Yeah.
it's millimeters, quite
Yeah.
literally in anything. I mean, it's even the same thing with your diet. If you're trying to lose weight,
Yeah.
or if you're working out,
Yeah.
same thing. Like in the beginning, when you're a beginner, let's say you're trying to lose weight,
Mhm.
if you have a lot of weight to lose, it's the water weight's coming
Oh,
off. It's so easy. And it's
beginner
those
gains.
last 10
Mhm.
pounds that you have to be really like my mom and I were talking about this. Side note.
Yeah.
We were talking about, she was like, I don't understand. She's like, what about when you're eating healthfully and you're getting enough sleep and you're drinking enough water and you plateau?
Yeah.
Then what? And I was like, Ma, there's so much you can do. Cause I learned this from Jeff, where
Yes.
it's like that's when you get into the details.
Mhm.
And so it's like, let's say, for example, water. Are you splitting it throughout the day?
Yeah.
Are you not just guzzling right before you go to
Mhm.
sleep at night? Food. Like, when are you eating? What are your
Mhm.
macros?
Mhm.
And then also, like, do those match your goals? Because that's
Mhm.
also very different depending on the person. And then
Right.
knowing you and your genetics, are you female? Are you male? Your height, your weight? Like, there is so much involved.
Yep.
Even let's say with like sleep, what's the quality sleep? Yeah,
Oh my
maybe you're
gosh,
going to
yeah.
sleep at 10 every night,
Mhm.
but are you putting on the red eye glasses or lowering your phone usage? Or are
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
not having caffeine after a certain point? Like there's so many
Oh my gosh,
factors.
yeah.
And you can get like, I love listening to health podcasts and
Yes.
hearing the people who get into like, they're just dedicated
Mhm.
on a whole nother level.
It
But I'm curious to know. So you had this amazing experience,
mhm.
and at least you had it for like a whole year, right? Because that's a year really is life changing,
Mhm.
especially like right out of college,
Yeah.
too.
I did it for 3 years.
You did it for 3
For
years.
3
Oh, so
years.
you
Mhm.
got, I feel like even though that's devastating, 3 years, they say it's a good
Yeah,
point,
it was really good, and even though it was seasonal, it was still I did it for 3 full seasons, got to go to the Dominican 3 times, one of those, but oh my
Yeah.
gosh, so much
Anytime you
fun.
could travel for work, I feel like it's such a blessing.
I know.
And also, I'm learning Kabbalah recently,
Yeah.
like Jewish mysticism, kind of like law of attraction, but like more
Yes.
so.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that's like a big driving point that's really resonated with me
Mhm.
is that whenever challenges come, whether it's a person or a situation,
Mhm.
you pause. You
Yep.
pause, you don't react in a negative way or a positive way, you just pause. And then
Mhm.
you're like, what a pleasure. what a pleasure that I have this opportunity to grow. And that mindset changes the
So
way you
much.
look at things
Mhm.
because you're showing up as a different person. Your energy is different.
Yep.
You notice different opportunities instead of just, you know, focusing on the
Yeah.
negative. So, in this moment, I feel like you're such a positive person, which to me means that you've been through a lot of shit. It has to
Yeah.
be, as an adult, because
Yeah.
I think that is a fallacy people don't realize.
Mhm.
But I think even just hearing this, I'm like, this makes sense. This checks out.
Checks
This
out.
this checks out for me. Like I feel like I'm doing your job where I'm like,
Yeah.
there's certain like qualities in people where I'm like, I feel like there's something so much more.
Mhm.
Haven't had the chance to like peel those layers yet, but I knew that there was like so much to your story.
Mhm.
So in that moment, right? It's been 3 years. You obviously are still so young. You're not done with your career. You gotta
No.
gotta make money. You
Right.
gotta pay the bills. So like what did you do next?
Yeah, so then I decided well, I always wanted to help people. I always wanted to go back to medicine. I love medicine.
Hmm.
And I was very stubborn, and I knew that, any medical school that I applied to would want better grades. I had fine grades, but again, your girl was struggling with some TBI issues.
Yeah. To
I
be fair,
literally I fell
did you say
asleep.
12 concussions?
No, I had 5.
5.
Yeah,
I mean, but
but, like,
still,
still.
more than 1? I mean, I haven't even had 1.
Like, I would literally so our chemistry exams or all of our science exams were at night,
Yeah.
7 PM at night. I would fall asleep in the middle of exams. It was super great. It was so much fun. So and I had 1 C and 1 withdraw, and, of course, that on a, medical school application, they're like, "Why? Why do you have a C?" I'm like, "Well, if you read my personal statement, you would understand."
Yeah.
Um, but I was stubborn, and I didn't wanna go back and take classes, when I knew that there were other things that could build me up as a person and make me more, I guess, competitive as an applicant
Yeah.
by, like, learning actual skill sets that are gonna help me in the future. So I was like, "Bet, I'll become an EMT."
Yeah.
So I went to EMT school, and it was a blast. I loved working as an EMT. I love being hands-on with patients, the skill sets that I learned, the friends that I made. This is actually how I got my sister into the ER 'cause she's an ER nurse and incredible.
Really?
'Cause
Oh,
she was
cool.
going through nursing school and she's like, "I don't know what what route I wanna go." I was like, "I promise you, you wanna go to the ER or the ICU." She's like, "Well, it's kinda fast paced." I was like, "I promise you, you wanna go to the ER or the ICU." And now she's an ER nurse and just
Loving it.
rocks it at her job. Yeah, she does amazing. Shout out, Mindy. You're fantastic. Like, she's the coolest person. I wanna be here when I grow up.
Oh, I love it.
Um, and yeah, so as an EMT, and because I knew having that hands-on skill set, because 'cause I'm much more of a hands-on learner anyway.
Right. Same.
Yeah, and so I just felt like that was the move.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, also, I mean, once you're done with your initial college years,
yeah.
you every time you make a career move
Mhm,
after that as an adult, unless you absolutely have to,
mhm.
it's really hard to want to go back to school.
So hard.
It's
There's
you know what it
assignments
really
and
is? To me, as I love learning, and I
yeah.
always love being in a classroom environment because I
Mhm.
love that peer and teacher.
Yep.
I love I feel like when I went to art school and I loved it so much. I learned 50% from my fellow classmates
Right.
versus just like the professors
Mhm.
and the courses. And so it's unparalleled. I just loved being in school. What stops me from going back to school is the money. I'm still paying off my original student
Right.
loans,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh my gosh, yeah, going back to chiropractic school because I was very fortunate, very blessed that I got out of undergrad debt free.
Wow.
So it was wonderful.
Huge.
Scholarships and everything like that helped me out. They don't really give you scholarships for grad school.
No.
So making that decision, I was like, but I knew honestly being an EMT was fantastic. But then I knew I wanted to be better for my patients. I wanted to be not the one in control, but the one to be able to kinda guide, and this is how I switched from initially wanting to go, like, traditional med school route
Mhm.
of, like, working in a hospital setting versus being a chiropractor, because I also didn't know initially what the massive scope that a chiropractor has. Like you have the functional medicine side, you can do radiology, you can do sports
Mhm.
medicine, which is hilarious because I work, in a sports clinic, but then my patients are vastly like wellness patients. Like I want
Yeah.
you to live your best life. Oh, you have some other things that are happening, like other diseases that are being managed by other doctors. Cool. Let me help you, like help me supplement that.
Right.
Um and that's what gets me excited because I would see all these patients come in and either they didn't really care,
Mhm.
because our healthcare system I could go on a whole rant about this, but our healthcare system is genuinely a sick care system, so it benefits
Yes.
those who wanna keep coming back for medicines, for surgeries, procedures, whatever the case may be. So there are patients that benefit from that sick care system, and they're okay with that,
Yeah.
and to each their own. But then there are the patients that came in really wanting to be better, but they did not have the education or the access to.
Mhm.
And it would just break my heart into pieces because they were ignorant. They had no idea
Yes.
that there are other things you could do to help whatever it is they came in with.
Right.
Um, and then you have fantastic healthcare teams that are just trying their best and doing their best. But then, of course, you run into no matter how phenomenal of a doctor you are, doesn't matter how you practice, you're still going to run into barriers, whether it be how the hospital policies are, how insurance works. Um, and you're just gonna keep fighting and resisting that. So by going to more of like the concierge medicine, the cash-based practices, we're able to have a little bit more freedom to explore, and I can take the time to actually educate my patients what's going on with them. Even if they come in with a diagnosis from one of their other doctors and they are explaining kind of what they've been told, if I can supplement that in any way, seeing the light bulbs click in their eyes like, "Oh, that makes so much sense now." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yes." And there's so many things that we can do to help you improve your quality of life. Like, that's what gets me excited,
Oh,
is
yeah.
those little things that nobody either can, like, have the ability to or just won't take the time, to give you those nuggets or help you understand even more. Because a lot of people are constrained by time and or their brain space just can't handle that extra, 5 minutes of education.
Yeah.
But I'm very fortunate that I'm able to do that at the office.
And then there's like the second part, I would
Mhm.
say to that as well, because you're right, there is access to knowledge of
Mhm.
knowing what you need to do.
Yep.
And unfortunately, a lot of times people don't hear that they need to change their lifestyle
Mhm.
until they're given a diagnosis
Yes.
for something, whether it's diabetes or cancer or
Mhm.
something like that. And then all of a sudden, what's so scary about that moment is you've reached a point when your body is like, oh, hell no, right? And like you're scared, your doctor's scaring you.
Yes.
And intuitively, you know that maybe there's something you should be doing,
Mhm.
but in that moment, you don't know what to do.
Yep.
So you're prescribed medicine and you just do it
Right.
because you don't want to die,
Mhm.
because you have a life, you have loved ones. And the other thing that I would say is because I've been on this journey, I'm 28.
Mhm.
I've actually technically been on this journey since I was a little kid because I started being like overweight when I was like 9 years old.
Yeah.
And as a 9-year-old, you don't know about it, right?
No.
You don't know what you're doing at all.
Yeah.
It really wasn't until seventh grade. I don't remember if I shared the story. If I did, I'm sorry. You're hearing it
Mhm.
again. It's a great
I haven't heard
story.
it, so I'm excited.
So when I was in seventh grade, mind you, I was also a 13-year-old girl
Right.
complaining about my body, saying how ugly and how
Mhm.
fat I was. And my mom looked at me and she was like, just fed up because she heard me say this all the time. And
Yeah.
in addition to that, I was like, tell me I'm pretty. Tell me I'm
Right.
pretty. Do you like this outfit? Do I look good? Do I look fat?
Right.
Do you think other girls are prettier than me? Like every
Oh,
typical middle school girl,
mhm.
right? And then my mom just snapped and she looked at me and she's like, yeah, you are fat. So you have two choices: either shut up and love your body or do something about it. I don't want to hear it anymore. And I
Mm.
remember the scene to paint the picture. Actually, here, this is my childhood home in that kitchen right over there. Um, right in front of the fridge. I remember I was complaining because I was also hungry. So it's kind of an ironic statement,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And all I liked, obviously, was unhealthy food.
Of course.
So it wasn't like a shock that I was like overweight because I like snacking and I
Right.
didn't really move that much.
Mhm.
I was in dance a little bit, but for some reason, I just never really shed the weight easily. And yeah, so I remember being in so much shock that I just closed the fridge in silence, left the house, and I went on a walk. I went on a
Okay.
walk,
Yeah.
and then this was my health kick from when I was 13. Actually, it's not bad
No, that's
to
a
tell you
great thing to do.
intuitively what I did. I started walking. I
Mhm.
don't remember how often, but often I
Yeah.
would walk, and then no seconds of anything
Mhm.
and no dessert.
Just to start. All right.
I was 7th grade. It's not bad.
Not bad.
Not bad for a 7th grader.
Yeah, at least
Yeah.
and for a 7th grader with no direction. Like,
Literally
no
no
one told you what to
direction.
do.
No one told me what to do. It
Yeah.
was just more of like I kind of took that accountability for my life.
Yeah.
And then in high school, I got a little more extreme because there's girls who are bulimic or anorexic.
Right.
Couldn't do the bulimic thing. I hate puking.
Yeah, no, it's terrified. Can't do
I tried the anorexic thing. I got hungry at lunch and that was over. I like food. That's always been my thing. I can't starve myself. It's just
Right.
not my thing. Yeah. So I remember having this aha moment though in
Mhm.
high school watching the girls who I thought were just genetically blessed because I either thought you were genetically blessed or you weren't,
Right.
which to a degree.
To a degree. Mhm.
Um, but I also noticed that they ate differently than I ate.
Mm.
Even if they did eat the unhealthy foods, it was all about moderation
Right.
and not eating seconds.
Mhm.
So I might have gone a little bit more extreme where I didn't have snacks and stuff, but I never really shed the weight. I don't know, my body
Right.
just hold on to it.
Mhm.
And so when I was 20, I went to the gym for the first time. And I had a
Nice.
trainer. I had 3 different trainers. Jeff was my last trainer. I
Mhm.
actually graduated myself from him in
Nice.
February.
Nice.
He was by far the best. I feel like each one was amazing, was like a stepping stone, and I
Right,
learned
they
so
kinda build off each
much.
other, yeah.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Like totally. My first trainer totally was such a good foundation.
Good, yeah.
I had such great experiences with all of them, honestly. But Jeff was so great because Jeff is the kind of person who doesn't just like to have you reach a result. He
Mhm.
wants to understand. He was like, we weren't seeing results. And he's like, okay, well, what's going on in your life emotionally? Like, what's
Yes.
causing you to do this? And he
Mhm.
like got a whole picture of who I was. And then it started being where he was challenging me in other areas of my life and it turned more into a life coach versus
Yep.
just like a trainer
Mhm.
kind of relationship. And then the reason why I graduated myself, even though there were still goals that I'm still trying to attain, I haven't gotten there yet,
Right.
even my health goals.
Mhm.
But I felt like I reached a point where I was doing it out of respect and a little bit of healthy fear of
Right,
Jeff.
yes.
Fear of wanting to impress him, fear of respecting him and his
Right.
time and knowing
Mhm.
the clients that he typically deals with.
Right.
Him being like, he's in one of my other episodes if you want to go listen.
Mhm. He's fantastic.
He is fantastic. But he used to be a pro athlete and he
Right.
trains pro athletes. So
Mhm.
I'm not a pro athlete. I didn't even do sports at all. So like I really was so grateful for the opportunity to work with him
Yeah.
that I worked extra hard.
Right.
But at the same time, it's really important to be accountable for yourself and to be able to
Mhm.
show up because in the end of the day, you could have the best coach, but they're human. And what if the reaction isn't what you wanted in that
Right.
moment in time? Which generally wasn't the case with him because he's really enthusiastic.
Right. Very just a naturally positive, enthusiastic person.
Literally, even
Yeah.
through text.
Yep.
It's so
Yep.
great. But like at the same time, I just felt like I was at a point where I'm like, I need to learn to do this for
Right.
me.
Mhm.
And so one of the things I did recently, this is super private, but I'm going to share it because it's growth.
I
It
love it.
helps
This is
everyone.
great. Yes.
I got my thyroid checked last year. There was
Mhm.
no issue. So
Good.
on one hand, thank God. On the other
Yes.
hand, I'm like, I'm a little concerned
Mhm.
because I'm trying to eat healthy.
Yep.
And then I'm working out. Going to the gym was never an issue for me. I'm pretty consistent with
Yeah.
going to the gym 5,
Mhm.
6 days a week.
Yeah.
It was the eating where I would focus for a long time. I think the longest I did a diet was like 3 months, but then when
Mhm.
I didn't see results, like barely any, it was just really hard to keep
Yep.
sticking to it because it's
Mhm.
just like, well, if this isn't working anyways,
Then why
why do
why do
it?
it? Yeah.
And then I would deviate, but then of course going off it
It's gonna
worse.
yes. Mhm.
So, anyways, I always had this nagging feeling that and Jeff was like, well, maybe something is off genetically. And I was like, okay, but what? Like, I
Yeah.
want to know what. I want to know why because
Mm.
I put diesel in my car. That's a whole other story.
I totally remember that day.
My car, I'm still driving
Yep.
it. That's
It's
a
great.
story for
You
another
know
day.
what? It still drives. That's all that
It
matters.
literally still drives. That's when Tony comes on, I should tell that story.
You so should.
So you guys have to keep listening so you hear not this episode, but another episode in the
It's
future.
so worth
Oh,
it's worth the listen. It's a good
it's a
story.
great story. I should not be driving.
It's fine. I shouldn't be driving either. It's fine.
Yeah. So where's it going with this? Right. So with your car,
Mhm.
whether you want to know whether it needs regular gas, diesel, or is it an electric car it needs to be charged,
Right.
right? So like every car is going to need different types of fuel.
Mhm.
Anywho, to make a long story short, I got my blood checked out, and it turns out everything came back amazing except for one thing, which was my A1C levels. And it turns out
Mhm.
that I'm pre-diabetic. And most people would be terrified of talking about the diagnosis thing,
Right,
right?
yeah.
But I've been on this journey and I've had really credible coaches all this time.
Mhm.
So I know what to do.
Right.
Now I know why my body works the way it
Yep.
works. Now I know why when I went on diets and I went off of dairy, gluten, and processed sugars,
Mhm.
that I felt amazing.
Mhm.
It's because as like my body being pre-diabetic and
Yeah.
having it on both sides of my family,
Yep.
I don't process sugars well.
Yeah. You know
And
what's
so
hilarious is we
what?
were sitting here talking to me and telling me all your symptoms. I'm like, I bet she's insulin resistant.
Really?
Like yeah. I was like, you just are telling your story, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know exactly where this is going.
But see, that
But yeah.
feels so great for you that you can know, like you have the knowledge to help
Right.
people when they express their like,
Yeah, because it's a genuine concern because you're
yeah,
working towards this goal.
yeah,
And I'm gonna go on a woman's tirade here too, because
yes,
like it's just so important.
yeah,
And that's part of the reason why I wanted to be in the medical field as well, is because I know for a fact, and two, I'm so passionate about women's health. It's severely understudied. Literally, there are studies out there for women done on men. Like, there was a study that was performed in, like, don't quote me on this, but it was recently in the 20 teens or early 2020s of why women's cardiovascular health declines after menopause.
mm,
So, meaning they're pretty much cardiovascular, like their heart and blood vessels hold up pretty well for the most part. And estrogen is a protective factor. And then you go into menopause, you lose your estrogen, and therefore you are at a higher risk of cardiac events. They did a randomized control trial, which is the best form of investigation you could do.
yeah.
300 or 900 men were the test subjects, not a single woman, to test estrogen levels.
That's
And
so
I was like,
crazy.
Why are we doing this?
It's not like
In
there
what
aren't women.
right? I was like, on now.
Yeah.
There's just so many other anyway, that's like my just I get really excited about women's health, and we are not taught about our bodies. We are
No.
not taught about our hormones. We don't like we were talking about sleep earlier. We are on a 28-day and a 24-day cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Men just have 24-hour cycles, which is
Yeah.
God bless. That would be so nice.
Yeah. Well, that's why they age so much better than
I
us.
know.
They're more
One
relaxed.
day we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Um, but we are so much more susceptible to being insulin resistant, to having our hormone levels, estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, all of those, they get synthesized in the body in various ways. And they can be depending on how you eat, depending on how your body breaks down
Mm-hmm.
because everything you eat is going to release sugar in some way, shape, or form. That's how
Right.
the body breaks it down and stores it. And then your insulin comes in and helps store it away,
Right.
and shuttles it where it needs to go. But if your body doesn't know how to do it because your hormones or whatever it is quote unquote out of whack, for lack of a better phrase, then you have these lifelong battles of why can I not have XYZ change? Why can't I lose
Right.
weight? Why is my sleep terrible? Why is my recovery terrible? And it is managing how and when you eat and what you eat,
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to how you are recovering. Because every woman that I've interacted with so far will have a varying success. Like there was one thing that we changed and like, I feel a million times better.
Yeah.
But that'll be different for another woman, which is the tricky thing. And that's why a lot of these studies don't want to study women because it's very case dependent. Um, but in actuality, I think that's even more reason to pay more attention to women and study us and help us, because empowered women empower literally everything else. And if we
Right.
feel good, we have so much more energy and the mental clarity to be like, let me share this. Let me
Right.
share this with you.
Yeah.
And even so, you'll have the insulin resistance, but then if you have women who are in high stress levels, or chronic injuries and chronic illness. Like myself in particular, I was also insulin resistant because I had chronic inflammation from my head injuries and I had no idea.
Wow.
And it wasn't until I got a handle on that chronic inflammation, and there are times where I go a little too hard or spread myself a little too thin. I'm like, okay, I know I need to dial this back because my stress hormones are just way too high, which is going to affect everything else.
Yeah.
But most people don't know that. We are trying to keep up with society,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to like take a step back and like the only person you have to keep up with is who you were yesterday.
Absolutely.
That's all that matters. And being very open and communicative with whoever you're around,
Right.
coworkers, whatever, your family, friends and family, and just showing up as your most authentic self.
Yeah.
And whatever that authenticity brings, as long as you are authentic in who you are, then what is meant for you will absolutely come for you.
Yes.
And in taking ownership of your health, yourself, really focusing on yourself, then everything else will come.
Right.
And that includes physical health, mental health, how you, again, that curiosity, how do you approach each situation? Why, like if you get, for lack of a better word, triggered for something, taking that moment, pausing,
Yes.
and you don't have to figure it out right away. You don't even have to be grateful for it right away, but like pause for half a second and take a breath, take a step, like, okay, I'll figure this out in a minute. But let me just like remove myself from the situation. But I feel like we just as women are not given that permission to do that.
Yeah.
And it's so hard. Some days, like I even feel it sometimes where I'm just like, I love what I do. I love the team that I work with. And I love the people in my life. And you just want to show up every day. And just, I get like a golden retriever energy. I'm just so excited. I just want to keep going. But then there are days where you show up and like, I'm not feeling it today.
Yeah.
It is a rough day. And I'm very fortunate that my team is very receptive to that. But it took me a while to give myself permission to even vocalize, guys, I am not showing up at my 100% today, but I'm going to try my best.
Yes.
Um,
Communication is such a big
oh my gosh,
key
it's huge.
in everything
It's
in your
so
life.
big.
Touching back to an earlier statement you
Yeah.
said about how like focusing on your health is going
Mhm.
to bring so many wonderful things into your
Mhm.
life, the right people, the right opportunities. And I think it's not just because we're shallow,
Right.
although we are, and that's okay.
That's okay.
And that's okay. There's
Yes.
nothing wrong with that. As like a former artist, I could say that it's
Yes.
okay.
It's definitely okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And but
Everything in moderation.
I think it also represents something on a deeper level, and we recognize that.
Yeah.
And also everything is energy. Like in Judaism, we
Mhm.
believe that your physical body is the vessel for your soul,
Mhm.
right? So it's important, like part of our religion is that you're supposed to take care of your health
Right.
because you're supposed to make sure that you have the best vessel for your soul,
Mhm.
not just in terms of like health and longevity, but in terms of energy. And
Mhm.
that's not just for your soul, but that's also so you can attract all these blessings into your life,
Right.
which is so huge. But I told Nick 2 weeks ago, I just recently got diagnosed like as a pre-diabetic.
Yes. Mhm.
And I told Nick, and there's a few of the other like preceptors were there
Yep.
as
Mhm.
well. And I was like, guys, tickled pink. I'm pre-diabetic. I'm so excited. And they're like, you're
Like,
the only person who's probably so excited. I'm like, now I know what's
yes.
wrong with me.
Mhm.
Now I know how to handle my body.
Yep.
Now I know what diet to be on,
Mhm.
like for sure.
Yeah.
Because I've tried so many. So I know what
Mhm.
works. It's not like I have to go researching. I just have to do it.
Yeah.
That's it. And also having the patience with my body now, because
Mhm.
part of being pre-diabetic is that my body processes things and the change is going to happen 3 times as slow
Yeah.
compared to everyone
Mhm.
else. So, yeah, after 3 months, I'm not going to see results, but I will if
Yeah.
I just stick it out.
Yep.
So I just have to be really patient. But now I know to be patient
Mhm.
versus before, I'm like, is it even working? I don't see
Right.
anything.
And we fall into that trap so
Yeah.
easily. So easily.
So easily. But it
Yeah.
also was exciting because there's like little things here and there too. Like, for example, now I know I was thirsty all the time.
Yeah.
That's a huge indicator if you're like pre-diabetic.
Mhm.
Another one was that when I would eat processed sugars, whether it was coffee, like
Mm.
lattes, like fancy
Yeah.
lattes,
Yeah.
which is a huge thing, or I'd be like, I don't even eat that unhealthfully, but like randomly, we talk about moderation.
Yep.
We would do moderation,
Right.
but I can't do moderation because it's a blessing and a curse. because on one hand, I have to be so disciplined and strict, so I can't just chill.
Right.
But at the same time, my body tells me exactly what's going on. If
Mhm.
I'm eating the wrong foods, if I'm in too stressful a situation,
Yep.
which you're not supposed to be in too stressful of a
Nope.
situation if you're pre-diabetic because you're more
Yeah.
susceptible.
Yep.
So all these things, like I will get acne within 24 hours of having sugar
Yep.
or being too stressed out.
Mhm.
Well, also energetically,
Right.
being around the wrong people, I get
Yes.
acne.
Mhm.
There's certain guys that I've dated who I get terrible acne. My mom's like, I'll know you found your husband when you don't break out. So,
I love that. No,
yeah,
you're so right.
if you're dating me and you've noticed that my acne has gotten worse,
Kindly see yourself out.
kindly see yourself out or do better.
Yeah,
Be
be
better.
better. That's all we ask.
I don't even have to communicate. My
Yeah,
face will communicate.
that's so funny. I'm gonna talk about my man real quick
I'm
because
so
I
glad.
know.
Can I pause to do a little intro about your man?
Yes, you can.
Okay. Okay. There this is okay. I'll cut this
Yeah.
out if you don't want me to say
No,
this.
yeah.
But there was a point where I want to say it might have been last year even,
Mhm.
where like you were there, Nick was there, and you had like a few moments before your next patient. So we were chit-chatting,
Yeah.
talking about boys, and you're
Yes.
like, oh, boys. And then like Nick was
Yeah.
trying to be your
He
cheerleader,
was. He's a
and
great cheerleader. We
you were
love him.
over it.
I'm so
You were
over it.
over
Yeah.
dating, you were over men, and you were just kind of like, whatever. And like, I love what I do, and I have a great family and great friends, and I'm
Yep.
just gonna focus on that.
Mhm.
And then when I saw that you had a boyfriend, it's just so okay. I'm such a romantic. Like,
Yeah.
as much as I want to find love, I want everyone to find love.
Right. I just love love.
It
I
makes
love
me
love.
so
Yeah.
happy. And then when I find really cool people who found their match, like, oh, my heart, the Jewish mom in me. I'm a mother, like the Jewish mom in me. I'm like, yay. Okay.
Yeah,
So,
so this all started, he and I met almost 8 years ago in EMT school.
wow.
Like, if I had not chosen to go to EMT school when I did,
Blessings and
like,
disguise.
I'm telling you, the universe was working for a
Wow.
very long time.
Wow.
Um, so, like, speaking of, like, again, energetically attracting what you want, because like you said, I was over it.
Right.
I was like, what will come for me will come for me when it's needed. But right now, like all I really need to focus on is starting this new job, making sure the relationships already in my life are really secure, my relationship and myself. And I was doing a lot of internal work. Like, how am I approaching adversity? Am I actually taking care of myself? Or am I just like saying I'm taking care of myself and objectively like I'm doing the exercises, I'm eating right, but, like, am I actually resting? Am I addressing any, like, mental glitch with anger or judgment or frustration instead of curiosity and kinda delving a little bit deeper? So I did a lot of internal work, all because like, the last little bit of graduate school, you're like, where am I going? What am I doing? Am I gonna be a good like, there's a lot churning up here, and, like, over
Yeah.
the years too, you're just kinda delving into how you interact with the world, and do you like how you interact with the world? H Do you like yourself and how yourself is presenting to the world?
I love everything you're saying.
It's just like
Yeah.
it's the craziest thing, and I feel like we don't really spend time with it because it's uncomfortable, and we love to stay in our discomfort, and that's how we attract those, acne-ridden men. Like, we
Mhm.
just are comfortable in that in not addressing the discomfort.
Well, you also accept the love you think you
Yeah,
deserve.
exactly, and
That is a
then
hard pill to
it's so
swallow.
hard, and it's until you realize, like, do I like me? I know some people like me because obviously I have friends, I have whatever. I put on enough of a quote unquote front
Mhm.
to have people in my life that will be supportive. But do I like me?
Would I date me?
Yeah, would I date me?
Mhm.
And would I be attracted to that most authentic person? And am I being authentic? Am I being true to myself? And those were really hard conversations to have with myself. A lot of journal entries, a lot of thinking, a lot of walks, and a lot of tears. Tears are good. Please
Tears are
cry. Please, they're
great.
so great. Please cry.
Don't hold it in, you'll get sick.
Oh, I would cry like I would start to cry and then I'd just like suck it back. Like, don't do that. Don't
No.
do that.
Girl, I'm at the point now where I'm so good with crying. I cry when I read. It's so great.
It's so great.
But also anytime that I feel like I'm crying, like let's say by a movie or if there's something
Yes.
external that's causing me to cry
Folgers commercial.
or music,
Yep. Oh, music.
I'll start thinking about, well, what else do I need to cry about right now? Just to let it
Just to let
out.
it go,
Just let it out. Yeah.
And it's, oh my God, so cathartic. It's so good. So I had been doing a lot of that kind of work. And so Vinny, that's his name. And if you ask me what his last name is, it's Vinny EMT because that's when I met him and that's why I put him on my phone.
I
And it will
love
forever
that.
be Vinny EMT. So hey, it will never change. So he in his off season, so he's a wildland firefighter, does amazing things. We love him for that. But in his off season, at least most recently, he was a personal trainer and a nutritionist. And I was finishing up school, and like the gym and I were not friends anymore. And so I just asked for his help. It's like, hey, want to help a homie out? Like we were still like really good friends. We'd stayed in touch over the 8 years, like over socials, because he would always post like women's rights things, or we call ourselves fellow pot stirrers. We're like, yes, we just really support each other in whatever we were doing.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like why, but anytime we would pop up on each other's socials, it would always be a very just huge support system. Oh my gosh, you just got to be promoted to the head personal trainer. That's amazing. Or you're a chef, or you went back to school. Let's go. Like it was very cool. And we would, again, stir the pot with other posts and things
So
like
were
that.
you just DMing each other or did you actually still
Mhm.
hang out?
No,
So it was more of like a long distance, like nothing bad happened.
no,
Life
yeah,
just got busy.
yeah,
And whenever you saw his little profile picture come up on
yep.
Instagram, you're
Mhm.
like, oh,
Like, hey, what's up, man?
Benny.
Yeah, like super
Yeah.
casual, like you are living your life,
Go
adventuring.
you.
Yeah, like love this for you.
Wow.
And
Isn't
like
it amazing how God puts people in our life, but like they're not supposed to be that person yet because
yes.
you're not that person and they're
Mhm.
not that person.
Yes.
But they were there
The
whole
whole time.
time.
And he and I literally have this conversation all the time of we could never have been together earlier on. Like
Mhm.
there's in no way, shape, or form would we have been ready or receptive to what we have now, even like a year ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, we started training together and just it was always I have never laughed harder in my life. Just two friends shooting the shit, having a good time, training. Um, and it was a lot of fun, but we were both very like we would tell each other's dating horror stories, like any new dates recently, like both of us in our training sessions. And he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm going off to fire season. Not really looking for anything." I was like, "Yeah, me too. Just starting a new job, like all good." And then almost every time I would leave the gym after our sessions, inevitably someone would come up to him and be like, "Are y'all
Because
together?"
the
And
energy.
yeah, and we're like,
And you
"No."
guys, of course, were the last to realize.
You will ask literally anybody that knows us. Nick too.
I know. 'Cause talking about it.
Because he would come in to get treatment, and then I would go with him to train, and literally
Meanwhile,
every time.
Vinny knew.
Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
because guys don't do those things for free.
I know. I guess so. He can dispute the fact, but, so eventually came the time where I left a session and we were texting and he was like, "So and so came up to me again and asked if we were together," and we just started joking about it. Like, it was this long running joke. He's like, "Do you wanna go to dinner and, like, talk about it?" And I was like, "Why? Why?" And,
Good for him.
I know he
How long
definitely
did it take him
to ask me
to
out or to
transition from that friend zone-ish that you were in?
I
I say
feel like
zone-ish
yeah, it was
because,
definitely an ish, and we just didn't know.
I think Vinny knew.
Feel like he knew. So he says, again, you can correct me if I'm wrong. He says that it was that dinner that let's solidify because it was very intentional. It was really cool. We went to that dinner and he's like, first and foremost, I want to like I honor and cherish our friendship. I never want to lose that. So if this is just two friends having dinner tonight, that is totally fine. But it seems like we kinda opened that door, and I was like, "Yes." I was not sold on it for literally another like 5 days.
Oh, okay.
A whole
Well,
5 days.
that's okay. That's a whole business week. I feel like
Okay, I
that's
feel like that's
totally
acceptable.
acceptable.
Very
Yeah.
acceptable.
You didn't make him wait years,
Right.
but
Well,
it is something to process.
yeah, well, because to our previous point, I was like, "Do I deserve
That
this?"
is such a girl thing to
It's such a
say.
it is. I'm like, "Why do we do this?" And you're sitting here trying to dissect and analyze and like, is this right? What does this feel like? Um, and then I will never forget. It was a slower day for me personally at work because again, my practice was still slowly building. So you have those, down
Oh, I know from
hours.
Tony.
Yeah, yes, yes. It's rough.
Yeah.
But you need it. You need it for the growth. You need it to hone in.
It's all
And
part of the
it
story.
is. It's all part of the journey.
Yeah.
Again, grateful for those chunks of time because that was one day where we were just messaging back and forth. I've never laughed harder in my life about couldn't even tell you what we're talking
Just
about.
shooting the shit.
Shooting the shit, literally. And it was in that day I was like, "You know what? I'll give this a shot."
Yes.
Everything just felt settled and good. And then what day was that? I don't remember. It was a Friday. We did something on a Friday. I don't know. And we went he's like, "I wanna do something fun on Friday." It's like, "Okay, cool." We went to arcade, we went bowling, we crashed a karaoke night, and then we went to a pool hall and played miserable pool, but I beat him in bowling and will ever beat you in bowling. And it was just I had so much fun. Like, there was no pretense, there was no you had to, again, put on a front just authenticity
You were just
attracts
you.
yes, being really comfortable in being me because he's seen me for me, and I feel
Right.
like that definitely helps because, like, when we would train, I would show up rolling out of bed, I'm like, "What's up, dude?" Um,
Side note,
yeah.
I've always said that if a guy hit on me in the gym and it ever turned into like something serious, I'd
Yeah.
have to marry him
Right.
just simply because I'm not, in my mind,
Mhm.
my sexiest version of me. I'm not
Oh
dolled
my
up.
gosh.
I have no makeup. I don't smell good.
No,
I'm known for smelling good. If you're listening to this podcast and you don't know me personally, you don't know this about me,
but
but I smell great. Like that's just my thing.
yeah.
I'm really into lotions and perfumes and body oils.
Yes.
Like that is my whole thing. So like if a guy is coming over to
And
me and
we
like
look like a
my
bridge troll. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's
It's
pretty
so
bad.
true.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, man."
Yeah. Well, also, especially my gym attire. Well, you've
Yeah.
seen it because, like,
Yes.
I don't dress typically because I grew up super orthodox.
Right.
And now I'm at a point where there's still so much of Judaism that I love and is meaningful for
Yes.
me. And so I'm on this journey where I'm really more focused on my relationship with God on a spiritual
Yep.
sense and like my spiritual connection, but the daily practice of the religion.
Mhm.
What I love, I do, and what I don't love, I don't do. That's
Right.
just where I'm holding right
Mhm.
now.
Mhm.
And so modesty, I don't wear pants. I can't. I've tried them on. I look like a man. Couldn't do it. And I don't even think these thoughts about other girls.
Right.
But for me,
Yep.
I'm just so feminine and girly. I grew up wearing skirts. It's so
I love
natural
it.
to me. But will
Yes.
I wear a mini skirt? Heck yeah.
Absolutely.
And I'll
Rock it.
wear like short sleeves and I'll wear like lower cut. I think in the beginning I did this rule where I was like, if I break a modesty law, I'll only break one thing. So if I'm wearing like a low cut shirt, my
Yep.
skirt's long, my sleeves are long, which I'm kind of doing right now, actually.
I love it.
But like that was kind of my way of still preserving some sort of boundary and respect and homage
Yeah.
to my religion,
Mhm.
but at the same time, giving myself some space to like
Right.
breathe and
And
explore.
and be you and explore who you are
Yeah.
and yeah, because we feel like also, depending on how you grew up and what you believe, it doesn't matter what you believe in, but which in order to create, I guess, some sort of organization in our minds, we put ourselves and give ourselves rules, which is absolutely a normal behavior. Again, psych background. Um, but then I feel like sometimes we kind of again lose that curiosity, we lose that kind of fun.
Yeah.
And we get really rigid with it, which can again, sometimes it works for people, and I love that for you if that is like exactly what works for you. But then some people, it rubs them the wrong way, and you feel like this friction, like you keep beating against
I feel
something.
so validated right now.
I'm so glad.
Because you just articulated like my whole feeling with like religion, where it
Yeah.
was so meaningful and beautiful for me. And I wasn't faking it when I was younger and I was
Right.
super passionate,
Yes.
inspired. I realized in my early 20s that somewhere along the way, I stopped doing it for me and I was doing
Yes.
it for other people.
Mhm.
And it was kind of like that whole thing with dating where it's like,
Yeah.
but who am I and what are my values and what do I
Right.
even want, you know?
Yes, and you have to know that for yourself.
For my, yeah.
And granted, growing up, we look to our role models. We look to our family, we look to whoever was around us growing up to
Hmm.
kind of model our behavior. And again, that's how we grow up, that's how we kind of set our foundation. But like you said, in our 20s are wild. Because you're
Yeah.
just going through so many different versions of yourself. And it's not until you sit down, honestly, in your mid to later 20s, where you're like, again, who do I want? What do I like?
And you're the only one who has to live your life. No one else does.
Right.
Like maybe they'll talk about it for like 2 minutes at their dinner table, like, oh,
Mhm.
can't believe what happened to Nakama Henderson. And you wish that everybody is spending time at their dinner table talking about me. Like, I'm not that important,
No.
you know?
Literally, even celebrities that get talked about for 0.5 seconds
And that's it.
and like, okay,
We
moving
don't
on.
actually care.
No.
We don't actually care. In the
No.
end of the day, we're all so self-absorbed for better or for worse.
Right. Well, and again, it's helping, like you just said, it's helping to validate your human experience.
Yeah.
Because all we want to do is feel that we belong somewhere.
Mhm.
And if you don't belong to yourself first and foremost, you won't belong anywhere.
You wanna be comfortable in your own skin, and
Yes.
I think that's why your relationship with Vinny, like, even though I haven't seen you 2 together,
Yeah.
but just seeing you
Yeah.
talk about him, like, you're not a different version of yourself.
Yeah.
You just blossomed into the best version of you.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
you just seem so comfortable and relaxed, relaxed. That is what
Yes.
a woman should look like when she is in
Yep.
love. She should be
I am
relaxed.
chill. I am good. Yes.
Yes,
Not so much tension or fighting.
no, and
Yeah.
she's not trying to be someone, she's not trying to
Yep.
change him. She
Mhm.
found a guy who is just really compatible, but, like, there's the passion and there's the fun
Yep.
and there's the friendship and
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah, who's also it's really wonderful and it's really challenging because he's also done a lot of that internal work as well, which is huge. And we both find that again, finding somebody who has really similar values. How
huge.
you yes, it's absolutely huge. So he and I both value that inner work very much. And in doing so, we're able to communicate very well. So anytime one of us is like having a day, um, and even if it has nothing to do with our relationship, but it affects how we communicate with each other because whatever it is out here is just like
It's gonna
it's
affect.
gonna affect. So we're able to communicate calmly and clearly because I personally do not handle confrontation well. I don't like I just
What's your zodiac?
I'm an Aquarius.
That makes so much sense.
I'm an Aquarius sun, a Libra moon, and a Cancer rising.
Got it.
Doesn't that all check out?
That really does.
It checks out.
I'm, the Aries sun,
Mhm.
a Libra moon,
Oh, that's why we
and
get along so well.
a Gemini rising.
Amazing.
So I am confrontational
Yes, yes,
to the point where I have to, like, reel it back.
yes.
Where, like, part of the reason why I'm venturing out to my own business
Mhm.
is that I just can't work under other people because the
Yeah.
problem, especially in corporate, is a lot of times with a
Mm.
boss or a manager, you kinda have to, like, let them be the one who's smarter.
Yep, and you have to
And,
make it
like,
sound like
while I've learned to soften my voice,
Have you though? Tell me about it.
apparently it doesn't really come across there. And then also, like, my face also
Mm,
is also the problem. So, like,
yes.
I feel like they and already talking about as you grow, there's like the little like it's down to the millimeter, right?
Right, yeah.
So with management and leadership, a lot of times they're exemplary employees.
Right.
And then they rise
Mhm.
and they're really good at what they do, but they're not good leaders
Yes.
because there's a difference.
Mhm.
And so they have a lot of low self-esteem about that.
Yeah.
Should I be here? Do I deserve to be here? What do other
Mhm.
people think about it? And then I come along and I have this look on my face where I'm like, you don't know jack shit.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to be that way. It's just more of like, that's my first blank reaction. And then my respectful, nice side reels it in. I'm like, oh, okay, well, we have so much to learn. Blah, blah, blah."
Yeah,
But
let's
then they saw it.
yeah, and they're like,
They saw it and they know, and
yep,
they see that I see through them. And then it can't work, you
right,
know?
yeah, and then you're just like, "Well, okay."
So my own
Yeah.
business begun.
Yeah. Well, and so what's hilarious is I'm not outwardly confrontational,
Mhm.
but I am very opinionated, and I hate being told what to do. Like,
Fair.
do not tell me what to do.
Fair.
I will fail 12 times. Even if the 13th time I did it right and it's the way you told me to do it all along, I do not care. I did it myself.
So relatable.
Um, so I knew I wanted to work because even going again back to that traditional medical route, part of the reason I part of one of many reasons why I pivoted to chiropractic is because I did not want to be pigeonholed into a certain way of practicing and a certain way
Mhm.
of thinking, of acting. Um,
Boy, did you find the right clinic.
right.
Because Tony is all about that. He's like,
Yes.
I remember even when he was first started. I mean, how lucky am I that he's the first chiropractor I ever interacted
I
with?
know.
But his method is like Western and Eastern medicine meet.
Yes, and that's exactly what I
He
wanted to
likes to
do.
push the
Mhm,
boundaries.
mhm.
He's obsessed with learning.
Oh,
His
yes.
dog is probably the smartest dog out there because he just made it listen to podcasts all day.
All day, every day, yes. I've watched Tank and yes, smart super smart dog. Doesn't like other dogs, but
Side shout out to Tony. If you haven't had your dog watch my podcast, I need views.
I know. Right. Yeah,
Oh,
it's so true though, because I've always been the person that's like, "The rules are mostly guidelines."
they're just direction,
Yeah, then if you tell me exactly
but
how
like
something needs to be
with the
done,
kitchen. Do you like to cook?
um, yes, it does not
Okay,
bring me joy,
it brings me
and Vinny
joy.
and my sister both
Know this.
know this, like,
Okay.
we call it spoon theory.
Oh,
So spoon theory, for those of us I call 'em neurospicy, um, you only have certain each task for the day requires a certain amount of spoons, and that includes getting up, brushing your teeth, getting ready for work itself, all of the things you do require a certain amount of spoons. And there are some days where you wake up and you have 5 spoons left. And you're like, "Well, how are we gonna do this?" And so cooking for me, if I can reach into the fridge, I have my pre-grilled chicken, I have rice that I made already, and a veggie blend, done. I can live off of that. I know it's gonna give me the nutrients that I need. It may not have a ton of flavor, but I cannot waste a spoon. I cannot give a spoon to cooking a fabulous meal.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a really great
It's
analogy.
so great. Yeah, and
But
it
as
helps.
a cook, though, I'll
Right.
just give the
Yes,
analogy.
please,
Even if
yes.
you
Both my father, my sister, and Vinny all love cooking, so
okay, so
I
they'll at least
yes, they
appreciate it
will
too.
appreciate it.
Well, so when you first start cooking,
Mhm.
you have to learn the basics.
Yep.
You have to follow the
Mhm.
recipes. But once you've been doing it for long enough, there's this magical moment in the kitchen when you read a recipe and you're like, I think this will be better.
That's what my dad does,
And
and my
then you
sister.
switch it and
Mhm,
it
and Vinny, they all do
is.
it. Yeah.
It's so much better. And then you're not confined. And
Yes.
it's a beautiful
Mhm.
moment. Um, I have this thought, I didn't want to forget it,
Yeah.
where it's a TikTok trend, and I'm sure this is a real life thing too,
Right.
obviously.
Of course.
But I love TikTok, as people know I quote it all the time.
Right.
But there's this trend with married couples where
Mhm.
part of their communication where they're getting better with each other is they'll come home and instead of it being like, oh, we're 50-50,
Right.
they'll be like, I'm at a 10 and I'm gonna need you to come at a
Oh my god,
90 today.
literally,
And
yes.
I think that's such a great way
Mhm.
to phrase it
Yep.
without feeling confrontational, without feeling too needy,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know?
Yeah, literally, Vinny will text me, he's like, "What's the spoon count today?"
I love
And I
that.
was like, "This is perfect."
See, this is why I like when people I know are in successful relationships because
Yes.
you're inspiring to me. You give practical advice.
Yeah.
And it's just good to learn
Mhm.
from real relationships
Yeah.
instead of like Hollywood, which is
Right,
not even
which
a
is
thing.
no, not real.
No.
Most of it's publicity. Granted, there are some relationships out there that are real. Like
Mm,
Chris Hemsworth and his wife, they seem very happy and very wonderful. His,
yeah.
documentary on Disney Plus, phenomenal. All about
Mm.
aging and longevity. So good.
I am curious to note. So, like, all of the career choices that you have done thus
Mhm.
far have been very male dominated.
Yeah.
And How has that felt for you as a woman? I feel like you're so chill though. Like you're just a people person
Yeah.
and like you can really just hang it with anyone.
Yeah.
Also, like, let's be real. I went to an all-girls school. Guys are the best.
Dudes are great.
Dudes are great.
Dudes are so great. And don't get me
There's
wrong, I
no
grew up competitive
periods.
dancing.
Yeah. Ooh,
So like was all around I was around girls all the time. And I love a lot of the female relationships that I have in my life are really great. But there's something about dudes that are just it's so chill. But it can be very intimidating. And I going along again on this authenticity journey, starting off and like how I grew up was very I I would definitely people please. Like that's my natural instinct is to people please, not to blend in, but to make sure everyone else is, I guess, more or less taken care of.
yeah.
So blending my energy to match whatever is there, being there to fill the need, making myself indispensable. That was like my fight or flight mode is whatever you do to survive, you have to make yourself indispensable. So filling whatever need, because I could read a room and say, that's what's going to be an issue. I'm going to go fill that need. And by the time people would realize that that was an issue, like, oh, hey, thanks.
Yeah.
So, and I call that like my superpower, but it
It's
was
a great
it was
superpower.
a great superpower. But also it's very draining, at least approaching it that way. Because earlier on in my career, I would kind of hang back at first and kind of watch and see what the dynamic was, and then just kind of match that energy, but still bring forth my authentic self. But definitely making sure I'm matching whatever was but bringing forth whatever was gonna match the energy that was there that day, not really being mindful of what that is. Um, and then as I moved forward, I realized that that was very draining, and so now where I am in my life now, again, authenticity attracts authenticity, and the more you come off again, I am a very positive person because I have gone through the shit and you've realized and appreciate every day that you're able to get up out of bed and
Yeah.
just like do the things and be of service, be a light to others and
Hmm.
show them that there is a way through. Even if you need to rest here for half a second, I got you. I'll share my lantern and then I'll help you on your way. Even if you just need a rest, if you need advice, whatever it is, like I got you because I've been there too. And I journal about it all the time. And being okay with that. Being okay a lot of people, like, don't like to look inward into the to those shadows and darkness. I literally like, one of my favorite journal entries that I wrote was, "I find solace in the darkness because that is where I first what first loved me."
Hmm,
Yeah.
that's really deep.
It was so great. So anytime I feel that or anytime that anybody is struggling or they feel like they're in the dark, I'm like, lean into it. Find stillness there because that darkness will show you that love and it'll spark that light.
Yeah.
And all you need is somebody to just sit there with you and be like, it's okay.
Yes.
And and again, either being that light or telling you to like guide along that way. And that's what gets me up every day. And knowing that that journey and that authenticity is who you are and the rooms that you walk into may not be receptive to that energy and that authenticity either at all, in which case that's okay. Walk and go find another room because a room that is going to be the best for you, again, that energy, you're going to attract the right room as long as you are honest with yourself and attracting what you need to the world. And you don't even have to change yourself. Like I said, I work with all men and they're hilarious and I love them. But we are all very different in how we approach life and how we approach work. Like I cannot go 24 hours a day. Um, I would love to. I would love to just keep going, 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 energize your bunny, but I again wouldn't be able to show up as myself
Hmm.
fully. I wouldn't be able to help people as much as I can if I worked like that. And walking into that room, I know that that part of me is accepted because I'm authentic and I know and they know when I show up, I'm giving whatever I have to give that day for the team, for our patients, all of it. So it's a very reciprocal relationship, but as long as you are open and authentic in that way, then that room just kind of like you fit. It's not
Yeah.
forced. And I feel like a lot of time we feel like we have to put on this tough front or take things more seriously. The one thing about men that I love, it is not that serious.
No, it's
It is not
not.
that serious.
It's so great.
It is so great. And once you realize that and like take that tension
The
and
right
pressure off,
men.
yes, the right men. Exactly.
I
You are
will
correct.
say, to be fair, I have
Yes.
come across a few men in my
Mhm.
lifetime who have more, this is more so on like a professional level,
Yes. Mhm.
where insecurity in men is
Mhm.
the most dangerous quality I would say is
Yes.
out there.
Mhm.
Really blessed that well, maybe I have, I guess, had that in dating, not as much. I would say professionally, I've seen it. And like
Yes.
insecure men are the most difficult men to work with.
Mhm. It's very challenging. Like I said, the room that you're meant for will stay open for you.
I would say you just made me realize if people say, "What are you looking for?" Confident man.
Yes.
Confident man who has self-esteem, loves
Mhm.
himself,
Yes. And who is aware of his
authentic.
weaknesses.
Yes.
And what I
And
find
isn't insecure about them.
right. And what I
Yes.
find really refreshing also about our office in particular, but then again with Vinny, with everything, is again, and this is something that we as women have to do too. And this is, Men's Mental Health Awareness Month in June, which is phenomenal, is making sure that they are heard as well. Because again, they feel like they have to fight and they have to be whatever they need to be. And voicing those insecurity and giving them space, even if they don't want to tell you what's really bothering them, but giving them space to be themselves is also our responsibility to make that cohesive relationship work. So we show up as ourselves and we have those conversations where you're allowed to be authentically you, but then you allow them to be authentically them.
Mhm.
And that is huge for morale. Like in a professional setting, great for morale, great for teamwork. Like we can actually see and relate to each other on a little bit deeper level than just like, hey, how's work
I
today?
think men really need that
They
too,
do.
because men don't, because like I can go through life and I can be like, but I'm just a girl.
Right.
What's he gonna say? I'm just a man?
Right.
Man up.
Right.
They're told to hide their emotions.
Mhm.
And so to give them a space where they can be authentically them is
Yeah.
also so huge.
Yes.
Um, Also going back to this whole thing of energy again,
Yeah.
a really hard pill to swallow is that your life will reflect your deepest manifestations,
Mhm.
both good and bad.
Yep.
And so if you're trying to manifest something and you have a really big desire in your heart,
Mhm.
a big example I think most people can relate to is love.
Yes.
And it's just not working out. Either it's a dry spell and there's just nobody, or it's just nobody good.
Right.
Right. And then you're just, well, I don't know. Supposedly, if you manifest, it comes.
Right.
Why is this happening?
Mhm.
You have to ask yourself, is this what I desire?
Yep.
Or is this what society is putting on me to desire? And
Mhm.
for whatever reason, maybe I don't feel like I deserve it. Maybe I don't want it for whatever
Mhm.
reason right now.
Yeah.
Because, like your story, when you got to a point where you had worked through whatever you had to work through,
Mhm.
the most beautiful love showed up in your life.
Yeah.
And I think that's so cool.
It's so cool. And you don't really believe it. Like you said, like if I manifest it, it'll come true. I said the exact same words. And I was like, fine. So I was taking my dog for a walk and I spoke out into the ether along the entire, 20, 30-minute walk. This is what I envisioned for my life. And I did that a
Wow.
couple times. And when like Vinny came into my life, when my work opportunities came, I was like, oh my God, this is what these are the words. I didn't write anything down. I didn't tell it to a single soul besides my dog and the trees that were listening. Um, almost everything that I had spoken had come into my life. And it was absolutely wild.
Yeah.
And having a man that is also very okay with knows that I've done the works, which means I know how to sit with you and let you tell your story. I'm not forcing my projections on you. I'm not forcing how I view the world because we all view the world through our own lens. There's really no way around it because that's just how we are. That's how we are born, everything. And, but taking that bias out of it and letting them just be them and that goes for any relationship at any point. Like some of my deepest friendships are so rooted in, I'm gonna let you be you. And you can tell me what you wanna tell me, and I'm not gonna put forth my perspective or my judgment on you, and then you just feel again, you feel permission. You get that permission
Yeah.
to be yourself, and then the more that those people around you in your inner circle give you permission to be yourself, the more you're like, "Oh." me is actually accepted and I'm pretty cool. So why don't I just be me all the time?
Literally, you're telling my 20s.
Right.
It was such a crazy
Yeah.
feeling.
I'm like, why do we fight that so much?
Well, I think we have a lot of thoughts. I mean, growing up in school, there's a grading system for like
Mhm.
what performance should be.
Right.
Being an athlete, being a dancer, there's a lot of rules and regulations
Yep.
around what's successful.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about being adult is you can take what is a perceived weakness and turn it into a strength.
Yes.
For example, I've gotten into a lot of trouble in my work for talking too much. And now I have a podcast
We love it.
and I'm a barista hoping to have my own coffee shop one day,
Yes,
you
it's
know?
incredible. Yes, and I feel like to our earlier credit of that fear of failure, that fear of taking a next step, of coming away from the comfort of, I know I'm getting paid, I'm getting a salary, like I have this job, I might not be the best at it, or I might like there's some resistance here, but like I'm gonna power through it and we're gonna live for the weekends. Which is, again, totally fine if that's where you find your joy and find your
And some
bliss.
people do.
Yeah, which 12 out of 10 recommend that but for some people, they find that wanting, they find that searching, that longing. Yes, where
This
you're
is
like,
me.
when you have to take that leap, take that step and trust that I'm gonna fail. It's going to happen. And but treating that with curiosity, with openness, with
But I've
that
never
gratitude.
felt more alive.
Yes.
Yeah. And also, side note,
Mhm.
like another thing for me, at least with my career thing, was that the
Mhm.
finances got cut back
Yeah.
a shit ton.
Yeah.
So learning to navigate that and be
Mhm.
creative and figure out what really are my
Yes.
non-negotiables, and
Mhm.
then how am I going to get that money?
Yeah.
Because there's always money for someone who's out there who
Yep.
will work, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
I do wish we could continue,
I know. We keep
but
talking.
I just so basically I started videoing my podcast recently
Yeah.
myself.
Mhm.
And so it's on my phone and it has a lot of storage and like I know with Isaac's the last 20 minutes are cut off.
Oh, no. Sorry, Isaac.
Audio is fine. The
Okay,
audio is
good.
not the
Yeah.
problem. Um I feel like we could dive into this so much more. I would
Yeah.
love to have you back on
Yeah. This is
another
so much
time.
fun.
This
Like,
is huge fun.
there's so much more I could
I
say
feel
about
like
all of
even
this.
within like so many things we talked about, we
I
could
know.
have like a podcast episode
Yes.
in and of itself. And you have so much knowledge, but also so much empathy. And
Mhm.
I feel like we have so much in common.
Yeah.
There's like so much we could talk about more. I really do want to do like a part two,
Yeah.
but I think it's good, especially since this is like a long format, but we
Yeah.
don't want it to be too long.
Right,
We want
otherwise,
to,
sorry, people.
this was a taste,
Yeah.
and you're going to get another one,
Love it.
and it's going to be
It's
great.
gonna be fantastic.
But I do have this tradition to
Mhm.
conclude this episode,
Okay.
which is there's my whole basis of my podcast is
Mhm.
based on this Hebrew quote, which is Ezehu Chacham, hello
Okay.
maid, we call Adam. I'm not fluent in Hebrew, but I do know that.
Yes.
It means one who is wise is one who learns from everyone.
I love that.
And so that's my whole thing. That's why I
Yeah.
have different guests on.
Yes.
That's why we talk about either their passions or their stories,
Mhm.
because we have so much to learn from each
Yes.
other. And also
Yes.
just talking, we learn, you know?
Yep.
So, my tradition is to ask my guests to share a quotable quote or a life lesson that's been impactful
Mm.
for them. So, the good news is you're coming on a second time, so you can
Yes.
think of a second
Okay,
one
cool.
later. I know it's so hard, but like
Yes.
if there was just one inspiring post that you want to drive home, what would it be?
Mm. Mm. I have an entire note section on my phone of quotes that like
Yes.
and I will come next time with an even quote. But one quote that I always come back to, one that my mother taught me a long time ago, because I also like just never really fit in well. I mean, I had friends, but like very few friends.
Yeah.
I would just kind of float amongst many friend groups. And that would really rile me. Like I would be so concerned about that growing up as a kid. And one thing that I love, and I think that will help so many other people, and really in line with what we talked about today, is a quote by Eleanor Roosevelt that is, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent."
Can we break this down a little bit?
Yes.
Okay. Because thank God I'm in a good place. Ever since high school, I've been like super popular, had lots of friends. But when I was
Mhm.
little, I was bullied.
Mhm.
And I honestly think it was till recently that I didn't really internalize when people said. So I never used to understand that quote. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, so no one can make you feel inferior without your consent,
But
meaning
words hurt.
words do hurt.
Yeah.
But then you have the authority and permission to be like, that is their perception of me. Again, another quote that goes right along with this is Denzel Washington. Sometimes your spirit irritates their demons and they're going to take it out on you.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's up to you on whether or not you allow those words to hurt you. You allow those words to put you down because you know who you are. And if you let those words really affect you, then that's more of like you need to point the thumb back at you of like, "Hey, why did those words affect me? What have I not really delved deeper in with myself?" And now that we are older, we can do that and have the wherewithal to do that. But if somebody's words about you and your character, even especially somebody who really doesn't know you, their words have no authority over you because they don't know you. They don't know your energy. They have no grounds to stand on for whatever words that they're saying. So if they are really penetrating you and really cutting deep, that's more of a you. That's your responsibility then because you're allowing them to hurt you. Like, well,
Yeah.
why? Now, if it's somebody who's close to you and those words, that's more of a conversation you'd have with them because then that's a whole other bag of cats. But as far as like going through everyday life, people who aren't going to be in your life for, the long haul, anybody who says or does things to you or towards you or about you and they don't really know you or your energy or what you've been through or taking the time to understand that you're a human being too, they don't deserve the mental space that they're taking up in your brain
Yeah.
at all.
I heard an interview with Tom Holland
Mhm.
where he said he was quoting someone,
Mhm.
and he said that for the critics, because when you're on that level of
Yeah.
like popularity, there's a lot of critics.
Mhm.
The critics will say all kinds of terrible things. And he would say, if you have something not nice to say to me, text me. And if you don't have my
Yes.
number, then you don't know me well enough to have any critiques.
Exactly.
And one last thing on that is
Mhm.
Kabbalistically, spiritually, in
Yeah.
this world,
Mhm.
there's two parts to it. One, whenever you go through something challenging,
Mhm.
to be able to be humble and to grow and to internalize and separate the person from what they said and say, is
Yes.
there any truth to this? Can I
Mhm.
grow?
Mhm.
And then use that as momentum to be a bigger vessel and you change, and then you are a magnet for blessings and
Yep.
opportunities. But at the same time, spiritually, it is the best thing if someone is judging you and critiquing you,
Yes.
because if they judge and critique you spiritually, they actually take on your negativity,
Mhm.
whatever you're going through, lightens your burden. And if you ever notice, if you ever judge someone, do you ever notice you go through something similar, if not exactly the same?
Yeah, all the time.
That's
And you're
why,
like, "Oh."
because you're taking on
Mhm.
the bad thing that you're judging
Yep.
them on.
Yep.
So spiritually, if you ever see someone through something, you want to say to yourself, you know what? I don't understand why they're
Mhm.
doing what they're doing. But if I was raised the way they were with the circumstances and had all the same things, I would do exactly the same thing.
Right.
Don't judge. And if
Mhm.
someone's judging you, you should bless them
Yeah.
because they're making your life easier.
Yeah. God bless. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my little
I
TED
love
talk
it. It's perfect. And again, I could go on about that even
for
for
hours,
hours.
literally. I'm so glad we did this. This is such a good starting point,
This
I
was such a
think.
great starting point. I love
Um,
it.
what can my community do to support you?
Really, I think so on our social media, St. Louis Sports Clinic, and then my own social media, Dr. McKinsey Cummings. We put a lot of really time and effort into like educational content.
You do.
Yeah, and it's so much fun, and it can be not nerve-wracking, but you're just like, "What do people wanna know?"
Yeah.
Because we are a movement-based facility, but then, like I said before, I'm also a wellness-based practitioner, and all
Hmm.
of us are to some extent, but then I focus on that a little bit more, I would say, but we all lean on each other, it's really cool, so give us a follow on our socials at St. Louis Sports Clinic or at Dr. McKinsey Cummings, and then let us know what you wanna hear, like, I wanna know how I can help you. I wanna know how I can be that patient educator that I've longed so much to be, and on this journey, to become a doctor. So if there's anything you wanna know more about and that I have in my capacity to educate and speak on, absolutely DM us, DM me specifically. I'm happy to answer those questions and
Yeah.
put out whatever educational content or even just life tips. I'm happy to talk about all that all the time too.
Let's
I love
go.
mentoring. I love teaching. I'm a dance teacher on the side. Like,
So
it's
cool.
so much fun. I love it. So anything you might have, bring it on.
I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And as you guys know, at the end of each episode, I tell you guys, share it with a friend. If this was
Yes.
meaningful for you, share with a friend, like it, and leave positive reviews and leave a comment, and let's start a conversation. That'd be so
Absolutely.
much fun.
Yeah.
The video version of this podcast, if you are listening to it, is on YouTube or Spotify if you want to
Love
see
it.
our faces. But also I'm really like right now specifically really trying to grow my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because apparently on YouTube you only start monetizing when you have 1,000 followers, and I
Mm,
have 69.
it's a
So
fun number. But yeah, well
wow, wow, wow. This
I
brain is always talking to
it
me.
really does. I work with men all
It
day,
took
like, I'm
me
sorry.
That was so great. Oh my god, that took me a second, but actually, like, a little innocent version of, like,
Yeah.
69,
Yeah.
because this is actually perfect for a conversation.
Mhm.
You and I are sitting opposite each other right
Yes.
now.
Mhm.
If there was a 6
Mhm.
for me, it's a 9 for you. And
Yes.
both of us could be screaming at each other till we're blue in the face, and
Yes.
you're like, "It's a 9," and I'm like, "It's a 6."
Yeah.
We're both correct.
Mhm.
Because in life, 2 truths, 2 perspectives
Can be true.
can be true at the same
Mhm.
time. It doesn't always have to be one
Yeah.
way, and that's the whole purpose of this podcast,
Oh.
to get these conversations going in an open and curious dialogue where it's
Mhm.
respectful. So
Yes.
let's keep it this way in the comments as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, thank you for coming.
Thanks for
Thank you
having me.
guys for listening. And I hope you guys have a great week. Let's
Yeah.
get it. Let's go.
Love it.